Hey, I'm Nick, and today I want to dig into how building discipline and all that relates to actually training in the same way you would with anything else. You see, in general, what we dream about having is motivation and a really feeling of I've got to do this and to actually do it. But in reality, motivation creates action, which is also created by discipline. It's a cycle, which I've mentioned before. You can't have one with the other. Action creates motivation, which of course creates action. Therefore, the easier we make one or the other, then the easier it is to get work done more productively. Now, it may seem more fun to practice that motivation side, but as we all know, it's actually quite hard to find motivation on command. You can watch through tons of motivational speeches, but that's not actually going to give you the proper drive that you need, as you'll be motivated watching it. But as soon as you take your attention away from that, you're not going to have that constant stream of dopamine hitting you and making you feel good and making you feel pseudo productive. What we need to do is train and get our action, which means we need to train and get the discipline. Now, for most people who haven't really thought about it that way, it might be hard to try and distinguish how you'd be able to get disciplined. But really, in general, discipline is like a muscle, it needs to be trained. You can't just run a marathon off the couch, and you can't just sit down and do work if you're so used to sitting down on that couch and doing something brain numbing like scrolling through social media or playing a video game. And so, what we need is not a method to find motivation to do things, but tips and tricks that are going to help us train this discipline in a better way and a more productive way in order to use it in a more productive way. But in a similar way, like a muscle, like you would train, lack of using it, even if you used to be good at it, if you fall into bad habit, it's just going to wreck it again, and your brain is now going to get used to how it used to operate. So, what we need is to be productive and self assertive and find these tips that are going to help us improve. But, like we would training muscles and looking up how to do that, there can still be false information. Now, in general, it's hard to find false information about how to be productive, but the biggest sign is when you've been watching through videos upon videos without taking action, and therefore you don't have results. Results are what we are looking for. When we are looking to train a muscle, we are looking for actual facts and statistics from studies. When we train discipline, we're looking for actual steps and results that tell us whatever tactic we've just been watching is working. And if it isn't, then it's time to step away and not just try and soldier on through if our work that we're putting in and the time that we're putting in isn't matching the results. But even if we think we've been finding all these good and useful tips and we've been using them for a long time, it's still important that we are making sure and taking that responsibility to find out whether or not some tactics have changed and if there's in fact a better way to get more out of the effort that we're putting in. So, just like I've mentioned before, it's important to be able to step back and look at if the tactics that we're using to train our mind are actually the best, and there might be some kind of better way to reinforce these ideals and ways to be disciplined that we haven't thought about before or simply hadn't discovered. And so we are all going to need to swallow that pill and realize that we do not know the answer and that there's always a chance that there is a more productive way of going through something. So yeah, I hope that's helped you recognize how discipline works in with actually taking action, its difference from motivation, and how discipline needs to be worked like a muscle. You need to be training your brain like you train a muscle, and that is where you actually get results from your efforts of looking up and researching how to be productive. But that's it for today. However, if you're still interested in learning more about productivity tips or tricks, I've now started one-on-one coaching, which you can book a call for using the first link in the description below. But until then, see you later.